On Tuesday, September 28, 1982, at approximately 5:10 in the morning, an Illinois Central Gulf freight train with 101 cars, including 47 cars containing hazardous materials, derailed in the town of Livingston, Louisiana. There were 41 derailed cars, many of which contained hazardous materials, presenting an extremely dangerous threat to human health and the environment. There was an immediate risk of exposure to highly flammable and toxic organic substances, acids, and caustics. More than 3,000 people were evacuated from the area for 14 days. The derailment proved to be one of the worst chemical transportation accidents ever to be experienced by the state of Louisiana. In retrospect, however, this event will be recorded as one of the best managed chemical transportation accidents in history, and is a testimony to effective training, leadership, and responsible government working together to solve a problem. The Environmental Protection Agency of the United States presents Strategy for Crisis Response. This program has been prepared through the cooperative efforts of the EPA and the state of Louisiana, with funding provided by the EPA.
It is not by mere coincidence that one of the worst transportation accidents in Louisiana's history was turned into one of the best managed. How was this accomplished? By being prepared. The state of Louisiana demonstrated at Livingston that a state can be prepared to handle a major chemical incident. Livingston also showed how the federal government can assist in such an endeavor. We have prepared this tape so others might profit from this one experience. What helped to bring about a successful conclusion to an unfortunate accident? All these elements: authority, training, coordination, communications, and cooperation. When an accident does occur, acting quickly is crucial. There's no longer time for training, delegating authority, or establishing leadership. These must be worked out before the incident occurs. We therefore need a framework in which to prepare and take action. The Regional Response Team, established by Superfund legislation, serves as a state-federal body for planning before a response is taken, and also provides advice and support to an on-scene coordinator during an action. Through the activities of the Regional Response Team and those of the state agencies, we in Region 6 have developed the 5 essential elements that proved successful in the Livingston incident. Legislation passed by the state of Louisiana gives authority to responsible state agencies such as the Louisiana State Police and the Department of Natural Resources. The state throughout the incident assumed its legislative authority and leadership role as the on-scene coordinator. EPA, as well as other federal agencies, provided support to the state during this emergency.
3 years ago, the Louisiana legislature directed the state police to coordinate a statewide emergency response system. The state police are not automatically in charge of every incident, but are there to assist with manpower, equipment, and technical expertise. When the local authority does not have the technical ability to handle a major incident, the state police are called upon to assist, or as in Livingston, take the lead responsibility. State police troops periodically simulate chemical accidents and have become experienced in an emergency response. In any accident, there's going to be confusion, and to cope with that and try to eliminate it, someone has to be the manager, the coordinator. The Department of Public Safety, and in particular the state police, have the responsibility of coordinating the statewide emergency response to transportation of hazardous materials. Major David Coleman was named overall state police coordinator in the Livingston incident. Captain William Poe was named immediate on-scene coordinator. It is necessary for this authority to be worked out ahead of time because decisions were being made on a continuous basis.
The Office of Environmental Affairs, referred to as OEA, was established by state law in 1980 as a state agency responsible for assuring environmental quality in the areas of air, water, solid and hazardous waste, and nuclear activities. The Department of Health and Human Resources worked hand in hand with other state and federal agencies to ensure the protection of public health and the environment. In an incident such as Livingston, the Department of Health and Human Resources had its own operational responsibilities to assess and monitor the health condition of the evacuees, to assist OEA in assessing the degree of contamination, and to establish that no adverse health risk exists during the incident or after cleanup has been completed. As in any emergency situation where an insult to the environment occurs, such as the Livingston derailment, the Office of Environmental Affairs is involved from the onset. In this incident, 3 of our 5 divisions had direct responsibility, those being the Air, Water, and Hazardous Waste divisions. Our operational goals were the following. Number 1, provide technical support to the Department of Public Safety and assist in determining the adequacy of evacuation zones. Number 2, evaluate the release of material to the environment, which was primary as combustion products and liquid discharges to the waterways, and establish emergency procedures to minimize the release of such contaminants and assess the degree and extent of the damage. Number 3, develop in conjunction with the health agency acceptable cleanup limits and to supervise and approve cleanup procedures and criteria. Number 4, provide additional support and assistance to any other agency involved in the response. The Livingston derailment tested an agency with only 2 years of experience, and in my estimation, we met that challenge.
The EPA also has the capability to coordinate response actions such as Livingston. This process is set forth in the National Contingency Plan prepared under Superfund legislation. EPA's Region 6 Emergency Response Team has prepared itself to respond to a full range of activities from taking the lead role to providing technical support in an incident like this one. In this case, the state was well prepared and performed exceptionally well. We responded to this incident in a support role. We provided technical support in air quality monitoring and modeling, soil and water sampling, and we assisted in the coordination and management of the environmental data. As part of the federal effort, the EPA OSC requested and received assistance from the EPA Environmental Response Team, aerial photographic support from the EPA's Environmental Monitoring Systems Laboratory, and the United States Coast Guard Gulf Strike Team.
The Gulf Strike Team is one of 3 teams in the National Strike Force, which responds to chemical and oil pollution releases in the environment. This special force is available to the pre-designated federal on-scene coordinator. We were called in to assist the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Upon arrival, the Gulf Strike Team began to monitor the ambient air for organic vapors. This effort continued throughout the incident on a 24-hour-a-day basis. The Gulf Strike Team remained on scene for the first 16 days of the incident, when it was released by the Environmental Protection Agency on 13 October 1982.
That brings up another point, training. Each of the levels of government and agencies represented here have participated in some type of training in order to be prepared. Let's start with the state police.
As commander of the Hazardous Substance Section of the Louisiana State Police, we're dealing with such serious potentials for disaster that we require our people to be thoroughly trained in the handling of hazardous material. An excellent source of training can be found through the chemical manufacturers and transporters themselves. The manufacturers can tell you about the chemical compositions and the potential dangers. We address this issue in the development of our program by going to industry and requesting assistance in the form of training in the area of emergency response, protective clothing and equipment, the use of respirators, and containment techniques. By working together with the companies in training, you become acquainted. A team spirit and bond of trust is formed. Another major source of training and funding is the Environmental Protection Agency. 3 years ago, EPA, under the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, gave the state of Louisiana grant money to conduct training for emergency response personnel. In addition, the Environmental Response Team of Edison, New Jersey, conducted training sessions in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for state personnel.
Ironically, just a month before Livingston, we had a simulated training exercise in New Orleans conducted by the United States Coast Guard. a simulated transportation accident was staged in representatives of the federal and state agencies, including the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, the Louisiana State Police, and industry practiced techniques which were later used at Livingston.
Chemtrec is an organization supported by the Chemical Manufacturers Association, CMA, which can provide 24-hour information service and rapid communications to the manufacturers and to shippers in case of an emergency. Information on the use of Chemtrec and guidance for on-scene handling of hazardous materials is available through Chemtrec workshops, now open to state and local emergency response team members. These workshops are scheduled across the country. Information on these workshops can be obtained through local CMA members or the CMA headquarters in Washington, D.C.
There was much potential for injury, but our training had given us a structure, a framework, so we might move through our steps of identification of the hazardous materials to proper analysis of the situation, to personnel protection and public safety. No one was injured as a result of the train derailment. Our safety training, particularly in the improper use of protective clothing and equipment, gave us awareness of our capabilities and limitations. We had mobile laboratories staffed by qualified people to give us the necessary data so we might properly evaluate on a continuing basis the status of our incident.
Training was received in the use of instruments such as the organic vapor analyzer and in personal protection, including self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBAs. Through a cooperative agreement with industry and government, mutual aid systems have been developed in the chemical industry to assist in your training program as well as during an emergency. A good mutual aid system can provide instant response with technical expertise, equipment, and manpower. In the case of Livingston, mutual aid played a vital role in providing this assistance.
The Bureau of Explosives is part of the Association of American Railroads. We were created more than 75 years ago to help the railroads move dangerous commodities safely. The railroad industry and the Bureau have worked hard over the years to teach fire and police departments about the way we move hazardous materials and what they need to do if there's a derailment. I've been to many derailments, but Livingston was the best coordinated effort I have ever seen. Part of this success was because all of the people involved knew when to ask for help and how to understand and use the help they got.
We looked at some of the different ways to get training and preparation for responding to incidents like Livingston. In summary, there are a number of opportunities for you and your people to receive that kind of training. You may contact your local state agency, the chairman of your regional response team, or the appropriate industrial representative in your area. Training will prepare your people for responding to environmental and health incidents. However, no single agency or entity can handle an accident on the scale of the Livingston derailment alone. Therefore, it takes coordination.
Coordination on the state level is not only essential, but can be readily set up within existing state organizations. Departments such as the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Public Safety are good starting points for an organized system.
If a state does not have such an organized system, it can go to EPA and other federal agencies for help. We can assist the state in establishing an emergency response system. One of the mechanisms for receiving such support is through the development of federal and state contingency plans, or by unwritten agreements.
The National Contingency Plan is the model for such state and federal contingency plans. These plans provide the organizational framework that defines responsibility, particularly of the federal agencies, and a system for response that ensures the coordination of all parties involved. Coordination was a key factor in our success, and we did enjoy success. Due to previous associations and contingency planning, our team people got along well, most knew one another, and each individual knew his job. We knew our resources, we knew our capabilities, and we knew where to get help.
You mentioned team, Jim. That brings to mind all the people from different industrial organizations and different levels of government who worked together so smoothly on this operation. Let me amplify your words. One of the main reasons this was so successful was because there was a lot of interchange between the different organizations prior to the accident.
The emergency response team of the Department of Natural Resources and the state police had been working closely together with industry and the federal agencies. This interchange allowed us to put things together quickly at the scene.
In fact, upon arrival at the scene, each agency knew what its responsibilities were and was able to go to work immediately.
We said earlier that 5 stages are developed prior to an incident and appear in the scenario of management of such an incident as at Livingston: authority, training, coordination, communication, and cooperation.
The complexity and magnitude of a response such as Livingston mandates effective communications prior to the incident, while on scene during the response, and with the public throughout the incident. At the on-scene command post, good communications were established as soon as the incident occurred. This provides a vital link with responding personnel and was of utmost importance in maintaining control at the scene. Daily conferences provided the opportunity for all the agencies to present their needs and to allow the response team to develop plans for obtaining the analytical data and other information for meeting these needs.
Of vital importance at Livingston was the use of remote videotape equipment to give immediate visual description of the status on scene to team members present without jeopardizing their lives by in-person visits to the scene. This was very important during the dangerous fire and explosion phase, when we anticipated unpredictable potentials for explosions.
It was also important that we manage the collection and documentation of environmental data so that we had a timely analysis of hazardous conditions on and around the site. I'm Ross Williams with the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, coordinator for our emergency response team. We use radio and telephone communication links to tie the command post to field personnel collecting continuous air quality information and to the laboratories where sample results were being generated on a quick turnaround basis.
The Department of Health was involved early in the development of the environmental monitoring program. We requested that specific data and information be made available to us so that we could assess the degree of contamination and establish that no adverse health risks existed. Our ability to obtain environmental information from testing allowed us to conduct evaluation of potential health effects, which were vital in regard to the question of evacuation. We found that in the absence of knowledge, people tend to create knowledge. They piece together their own version of the situation based on rumor and hearsay.
In order to keep fear and untrue stories from spreading, it is necessary that you have a good and constant rapport with the public, including both residents and media. One person was chosen by the on-scene coordinator to be the official spokesman throughout the incident. A single coordinated media conference that reflects the efforts of all the agencies is essential. Care must be taken to ensure that an accurate picture of the emergency is conveyed. This one spokesman approach has worked well.
The cooperation received at Livingston from state, local, federal agencies, and industry was excellent. It wasn't accidental. It was the direct result of state and federal programs that have been previously established and the close working relationship through various cooperative activities, particularly at the local level. These have been hard, trying, and demanding times, developing contacts, establishing relationships between the Louisiana State Police, industry, and government. But these efforts were worthwhile. This was evident from the beginning of the Livingston incident.
We responded to the Livingston derailment and assisted the railroad and the on-scene coordinator primarily in providing expertise relative to the chemicals involved and about car and tank construction and their condition after the derailment. Decisions had to be made relative to the structural integrity of these tanks, as well as decisions regarding the contents of the tanks. We assisted the railroad and the state police in these determinations.
I can never say enough about the cooperation and assistance I received. I feel very fortunate to have been selected as the on-scene coordinator to work with this group of professionals.
This spirit of cooperation extended not only through the response teams, but also through the local participants as well. Cooperation is seen through the many agencies which work together during the emergency phase. There was also a great need to coordinate the activities during the cleanup phase. I worked closely with the many Livingston residents. Cooperation received from many residents through the fire chief, the local law enforcement agencies, right down to the townspeople, helped this operation tremendously. For example, the local public officials' ability to keep the residents informed made the cooperation on the local level more effective.
This incident presented a great deal of concern about the health and safety of residents during the fire and explosion and the cleanup period. Cooperation was vitally important between all departments and other state and federal agencies working together. The health and safety of animals involved, domestic animals and livestock, must have special provisions made for their care, welfare, and health. They must be fed and cared for during the time when the residents of the area have been evacuated. The Department of Agriculture played a major role.
As you can see, it takes a multitude of effort from many sources. Industry is willing to help with training to develop the expertise to handle such accidents in the future. The cooperation between industry and government that was so good at Livingston must be encouraged for the benefit of the public health and safety.
Well, there you have it, a summation of the most important elements that led to a successful conclusion at the Livingston train derailment. If you took a poll of the participants and asked why a potentially serious incident was handled so well, you'd get different but complementary answers. It boils down, however, to those 5 elements.
Authority.
Training.
Coordination.
Communications.
And cooperation.